One rumor. That's all it took to nearly destroy the entire American economy. October 1907, Wall Street. New York City. Thousands of people standing outside banks, screaming, begging, demanding their money back. But the banks? They had nothing left to give. This wasn't a war. It wasn't a natural disaster. This was pure panic, and it all started with one bad bet by two men you've never heard of. By the time it was over, the richest man in America had to step in and basically become the government. This is the story of the panic of 1907, the crisis so bad it forced the creation of the Federal Reserve, and it almost took the entire country down with it. Here's what most people don't realize. In 1907, the United States had no central bank. None. No Federal Reserve. No lender of last resort. No safety net. Just thousands of small banks scattered across the country, all doing whatever they wanted. And something else. Something called trust companies. Think of them like banks, but riskier. Way riskier. They took your deposits, but they also gambled with them. Real estate, stocks, high-risk investments. And here's the kicker. They barely had any regulations. People loved them because they paid better returns than regular banks. But what they didn't know, these trust companies were playing with fire. By 1907, trust companies controlled nearly half the deposits in New York City. The problem? The entire system ran on one thing: confidence. The moment people stopped trusting the banks, the whole thing could collapse. And in October 1907, that's exactly what happened. It started with two guys, Augustus Hines and Charles Morse, millionaires, risk takers, and absolutely reckless. Hines was a copper mogul. Morse? A so-called ice king who controlled New York's ice supply. Both of them owned banks, and both of them thought they were untouchable. In October 1907, Hines tried to pull off a classic stock corner. He wanted to manipulate the stock price of a copper company he controlled. The plan? Buy up all the shares, drive the price up, crush the short sellers, make a fortune. But it backfired. Hard. The stock crashed. Hines lost everything. And because he owned banks, those banks started failing too. Panic spread like wildfire. People heard the name Hines and started pulling money out of any bank connected to him. Then the rumors started. Morse is involved too. The trust companies are in trouble. And that's when one name came up. A name that would change everything. Knickerbocker Trust Company. One of the biggest, most respected financial institutions in New York, and it was about to collapse. October 21st, 1907, news breaks that the president of Knickerbocker Trust, Charles Barney, was connected to Morse's failed schemes. It didn't matter if it was true or not, the damage was done. The next morning, October 22nd, people lined up outside Knickerbocker. Hundreds, then thousands. Everyone wanted the same thing, their money, right now. Imagine your bank shutting down overnight, with your life savings inside. What would you do if your bank refused to give your money back? Knickerbocker tried to pay people, but they didn't have enough cash on hand. By the end of the day, they closed their doors. One of the most powerful trust companies in America, gone in 24 hours. And that's when the real nightmare began. Because once Knickerbocker fell, people stopped trusting everyone. Bank runs spread across New York, then across the country. The stock market tanked, credit froze, businesses couldn't get loans. The entire American economy was on the brink of total collapse. And there was no government rescue plan, no Federal Reserve to step in. Just chaos. Unless someone did something, fast. Enter J.P. Morgan, 70 years old, the most powerful banker in the world. And at that moment, he basically was the central bank. Morgan was at a church convention in Virginia when the panic started. He rushed back to New York and locked himself in his private library. And he did something insane. He gathered every major banker in the city, forced them into a room, and told them, "We're fixing this together, or we all go down." Morgan didn't ask. He demanded. He organized a pool of money from the richest men in America. John D. Rockefeller personally pledged $10 million. In 1907 money, that's over $300 million today. Morgan directed where the cash went, which banks got saved, which ones didn't. He worked around the clock. No sleep, just pure focus. At one point, he locked a group of trust company presidents in his library. Told them they weren't leaving until they signed a rescue agreement. They signed at 4:45 in the morning. But here's the thing, was Morgan a hero? Or was he just protecting his own empire because the banks he saved? A lot of them were ones he had stakes in. The ones he let fail? His competitors. He wasn't elected, wasn't appointed by the government. He was just one man with enough power to control the fate of millions, and that terrified people. The panic finally ended in mid-November. Morgan's plan worked. The bank stabilized. The economy didn't collapse, but the damage was done. People realized the truth. America's entire financial system had been saved by one private citizen. Not the government. Not Congress. Not the president. One banker. And that was a massive problem. What if Morgan hadn't been there? What if he'd been too old, too sick, or just didn't care? The whole country would have gone under. Think about that for a second. Your life savings, your job, your future, all depending on whether one guy felt like helping. This crisis exposed just how broken the national banking system really was. No central authority, no emergency funds, no plan, just chaos waiting to happen again. Politicians, business leaders, everyday Americans, everyone agreed. This can never happen again. Something had to change. In 1908, Congress passed the Aldrich-Vreeland Act. It was a temporary fix. A way to inject emergency currency into banks during a crisis, but everyone knew it wasn't enough. So a commission was formed, led by Senator Nelson Aldrich. They studied central banks in Europe, talked to economists, bankers, experts, and in 1913, 6 years after the panic, President Woodrow Wilson signed the Federal Reserve Act into law. The Federal Reserve was born, a central bank designed to prevent exactly what happened in 1907, to be the lender of last resort, to stabilize the economy, to stop panics before they start. Love it or hate it, the Fed exists because of this crisis. Because one panic proved we couldn't leave our entire economy in the hands of one man. So here's the final thought. Every major financial system we have today, the Fed, deposit insurance, banking regulations, they didn't come from a textbook. They came from disaster. If you want more real financial stories like this, hit subscribe. Because history doesn't repeat, but it sure does rhyme. See you in the next one.